All right, guys, it's finally grand final week. I can't believe we're here. It's been such a long season, a great season and a great final series so far, but we're just days away now from the big one. I'm joined by AFL Titan Joel Williams. We're going to run through the game and a few other things that we want to dissect today. So let's get stuck into it. Joel, how you going, mate?
Mate, really well. It's a great time of year, and I'm really excited about this grand final, probably more so than the last few years. So looking forward to the game on Saturday.
Yeah, it's just got that buzz about it, that's starting to build now. The Brownlow's sort of been and gone, and even the weather, it just smells like grand final week, doesn't it?
It does. And we've got the best two teams in the league playing in it, number one, number two. So couldn't be poised better for the contest I think we're all hoping for all year.
And we were just talking before about last year's game, how it was it was obviously a massive fizzer, and leading into the game the writing was on the wall a little bit with that. Not this year though.
No, this year, with obviously number one and number two playing each other, we can expect a pretty good game. It's the first time since 2014 that we've had the top two teams playing in the grand final. So,
right.
Both had similar journeys to the grand final. They both had to face an up-and-coming team that had found themselves in a prelim from the bottom four teams in the eight. And I think both had a scare. There's no question. You had Collingwood, who fell over the line by 1 point, and then the first 5 goals by the Blues really had us, a little bit fearful at quarter time. So, but I think the best two sides are in the grand final, so it should make for a great contest. Yeah,
for sure. We'll get into our side and your side a bit later, but we'll just do a quick market update thanks to Betfair. So the Pies opened around $1.88 sort of Saturday night. They came into as much as $1.76, which was a bit of a steamroll, to be honest, and now they've sort of settled around that $1.84 mark, I think, off the back of a bit of injury news, which we'll talk about. And again, on the flip side, Brisbane opened around $2.10, got out to as much as $2.30 yesterday, Arvo. And they've been sort of whacked back into $2.18.
I may have been a part of that whacking, because I couldn't believe when Brisbane got out to that $2.30 mark.
It was a big price, wasn't it?
It was.
When you think about it.
It was, and I think everyone's well aware of our position heading into this grand final. It's been pretty public for the last 8 weeks or so, but I've kind of, people have been asking, are we laying off our position or not, and I've had to say, I'm still backing them, and that's been the story for the last 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, your members got a tip around 20, around 21, I think it was, for the Lions to go all the way at about $7. So that's now in a great position. Did you want to talk about your personal market and sort of, I know you've been playing the premiership market pretty much all year.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about sort of the journey and where it sits now?
Yeah, obviously we take some value throughout the season. Brisbane were clearly our standout, and I really feel the MCG factor, all these bits and pieces and these queries have allowed us to get a lot of value around Brisbane. We all know they've stumbled in some big games, over the past few years in prelim finals, etc. And I just feel I've always felt this season they're a much more mature side. And I loved the loss they had against the Demons a few weeks ago. I think it was the final straw and a good lesson they learned. I just feel like a lot of maturity came out of that game. So that being said, the market hasn't seen it that way, so we've continued to bet Brisbane. We had a bit of look, GWS would have been a horrible result for my personal book on Betfair, but I find myself in a position where Brisbane will net a nice return.
How nice are we talking? We might as well get stuck into the figures. It's a big green number that I'm looking at here.
Look, my book on Betfair at the moment is about plus 50 K for Brisbane, and minus about 20 for Collingwood. So I'm not seeing any value at the moment to lay off. And it's probably worth touching on, Christian. People are always about securing a profit and those types of things. In our game, we're about just securing value. So the way I see the market right now, there's no value in laying off. And so that's why, unless the market changes quite significantly, our members, don't expect a layoff tier. I think we're going to take Brisbane in.
And it is probably worth mentioning, like, there's no harm in taking profit, is there? As everyone's sort of personal circumstances are different, but it's your job to, like you said, analyse the game and deliver your advice, and that's where you sit. So so to our members that are sitting on $6.50, $6, we're probably going to ride that to the end of the game, aren't we?
And then you make a good point. Everybody's situation is unique. I guess if you're following our staking strategy specifically and properly, we don't need to lay off.
That's good. Now the total points sitting around 165, which has actually moved up since market open from around 162, which surprised me a bit, just off the back of, I know Brisbane are obviously a high offence team, but grand final pressure. Collingwood haven't kicked any scores in the finals so far. You that was around your line though, wasn't it? You were around that mark?
we had it around that 165. So I'm not surprised to see it bump up from that 161, 162 we saw earlier in the week. I think both teams have ways they can score. There are some queries around Collingwood's finals, obviously to date. They've had 58 points and 60 points. I think we can all agree that they'll need to score a hell of a lot more than that to get the job done this weekend. So, where are they going to find that score? Well, we can get into that a little bit deeper, but the total points market is not something we're looking at the moment for this week.
Now we are going to keep this podcast as unbiased as possible, aren't we? Because nothing's a sure thing in this game. So, and it's, as the market reflects, it's close to a coin flip. So so it can go either way. Let's have a chat about, where is the game going to be won and lost? How are Collingwood going to win? How are Brisbane going to win?
It's an interesting conversation because they have differing styles in some ways, and it looks like the Pies can win this game in their scoring from half back. Clearly, the number one ranked side in the league in scoring from defence, and the Lions aren't particularly good at defending that kind of scoring. So they're 11th in defending that kind of score in the league. So it looks like a way that the Pies can expose the Lions, and it has to be a focus for Brisbane to defend that side of the ball because, they have a great advantage with their mixed day out. But this way, in the way they move the football, it relies on pace. And, guys they're going to have a small forward line, they're going to have a lot of pace, and it just seems like the way that they could get the Lions in that way, in that method of scoring.
Well, so let's talk about McStay being out, huge out. I think, teams haven't been decided yet, but it's likely that Billy Frampton will come in. Hasn't played either of the finals so far. I think he played the last game of the year though, so he's only missed a couple, but missing those pressure finals. So that's one team change, but then the other one is Taylor Adams, who doesn't come back in, didn't get up. I think that's a huge. He's going to be missed. I think he would have probably replaced Patrick Lipinski, who I think Collingwood fans will actually agree with me. He's been nothing short of terrible this final series. He's looked like the pressure's really got to him.
It has.
So to not get a big body like Adams back in, who can roll through the midfield and control things.
It was just a few weeks ago, Nathan Buckley made the comment of Taylor Adams is built for finals.
Yeah, he is.
And I think it's a massive out. Because if they start getting in trouble in the contest, and Brisbane have been very, very strong in the contest, and this game's going to be won and lost in the contest. So Adams is a guy you can send in there, gets toughness, he's physical around the football, gone. And I think it's big. Dan McStay, I think I did a tweet about him, and he's the number 1 rated player over the last 10 weeks for converting targeted entries into goals, which is an incredible statistic.
That is crazy.
And a multiple goal scorer in 8 of his last 9 games.
Yeah.
Provides a lot of structure forward of the ball for the Pies, and with Harris Andrews, it just makes him needing to be less accountable. So now the Pies have to provide, they have to have a focused player pretty much, almost tagging Harris Andrews. Otherwise, they're going to be in big strife. And, when Carlton had the foot on Brisbane's throat in the first quarter of the preliminary final, Carlton had 22 inside 50s in that quarter, 2 marks inside 50. Andrews and Gardner had 10 spoils, and so that's going to play a massive part in this grand final. Yeah.
That conversion statistic for McStay, think back to the first final against Melbourne, where they were so efficient. We spoke about it on the last pod, how I think I mentioned that in that third quarter they scored 4 goals from 5 entries. That, and they don't win the game unless they're that efficient. Because it was that tight. Yeah. So I think that's just a huge statistic that's going to be missing on the weekend.
It is, and he kicked a key goal again on the weekend in the preliminary final when Collingwood had their backs against the wall. It's a huge out, and one that I feel has been missed by the market.
All right, and so let's jump over to Brisbane now. So obviously Dizzy Gardner will play, we would have thought. We don't think
Payne won't get up.
Yeah, he won't get up, so no change. And he was amazing on the weekend, considering he hadn't played.
Loved his game. Loved his game.
So how are Brisbane going to beat Collingwood?
Yeah, many a ways, in my view. And I look across each section of the ground, and I think they can expose the Pies in many ways. We just spoke about, obviously, the advantage of Harris Andrews and obviously no McStay to keep him honest. So this gives, probably what was the least dominant area of the ground, Brisbane's defence, I think a good edge here, So then you move into the midfield. I love, people are going on about Jordan De Goey, and rightly so, what a player. And he's had a great final series. He's a big game player, but Josh Dunkley's the perfect guy. He doesn't have the pace that De Goey has, but he's got the strength and he's got the smarts. He just has to take De Goey off the ball early before it gets going.
Which is exactly what he did to Cripps on the weekend. He did an absolute job on him.
He did. So Dunkley, perfect matchup for De Goey. And then, Charlie Cameron, up forward. The Pies have really struggled with this guy. This guy's had 10 goals in the 2 games they've played this year. He's had 17 goals in the last 4 games over 2022-2023. They don't have a matchup because Charlie Cameron has so much pace. It's not like Toby Green where Maynard can go and do a great job on him. This guy has put Maynard to the sword, Quainer to the sword, Noble to the sword. He's due for a big game. So I think Charlie Cameron's a bit of an X factor there. And then, the Brownlow medalist, Lockie Neal. He's had 2 quiet finals, and Brisbane has still been able to get the job done. Now, the Pies don't tag.
That's a huge one, isn't it?
So this will be Lockie Neal's best game of the final series.
Yep.
And I think that's a key matchup for this one as well. As you can see, I do like the Lions. I guess the Pies will have to get the Lions on the rebound, on the turnover, and scoring from defence. Okay,
so let's try and think into the future a bit. Let's say during the game on the weekend, tell me something that you don't want to see being so heavily on the Lions that will might make you go, okay, this isn't happening how I want it to go. I might need to think about chopping out a little bit here. What's something that will make you think that seeing like maybe just in the first quarter, first half, that make you go, oh, this isn't going the Lions' way.
Yeah, I think it's energy from the Pies and pace, you know, on the rebound. The two big things I keep coming back to. And, you know, if their players, you know, their best players can get on top for the Pies. So, you know, Scotty Pendlebury has been, you know, the Pies' best clearance guy and the number one rated Pie over the last 6 weeks. So this guy, you know, is obviously all class. He's somebody that can perhaps be, you know, if the goal is, you know, getting a bit of attention, can Pendlebury start to get on top? Can Nick Dacos? You know, I'm not sure Brisbane will tag Nick Dacos or give him too much attention. Do these guys start getting on top? And then once the crowd gets into it, you know, that would be the only concern for me if Brisbane get overawed by the occasion.
Yeah, it's going to be hot early, isn't it? It's
hot early.
And I think that's something that I was impressed with Brisbane on the weekend. You know, they got jumped and I just felt like if Carlton had to kick one more goal, it might have got really ugly.
Yeah.
But Brisbane were able to wrestle a bit of momentum, kick a goal, go into quarter time, only down 3.5 goals or something like that.
And I think we were all going, holy moly.
Yeah.
But I love it now because they've shown that maturity, which I thought they had. You know, I'm not sure they respond the same way 2 years ago. You know, they're much more mature now. They trusted their game and they got back on top. And after a week off, you know, they had obviously a week off before the finals, a game, then a week off, then another game. It's good they were challenged. They overcame the challenge, so it prepares them well coming into the grand final. So yeah, it's not bad preparation.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now we have to address the MCG narrative. You know, whether it's providing an opportunity or whether it's a genuine hoodoo will remain to be seen. It's hard to debunk, but I'll read you a couple of stats. So that really makes you think about. You don't have to worry about history too far with these games. So like the Pies and the Lions haven't played at the MCG against each other since 2017. So I didn't look at the teams on that game, but like I can tell you that they've changed the list a lot since then. You know, being 6 years ago. You know, another one. Brisbane are on a 6-game win streak versus Collingwood. None of them being at the G. But do you surely you look at that as better form potentially? I don't know. What about Collingwood have only won 2 of their last 14 grand finals, which are obviously all at the G as well. And they're 1-4 this century. So if that's recency, you know, that's something else to note. And then I guess the other one, again, in Brisbane's favour is, you know, the one win that they have had was at the it was in the finals last year against the Demons, who were red hot coming off a qualifying loss and were able to knock them off and go back home. Yeah. It's pretty good form, that. Yeah. If you're looking at recency bias kind of thing.
It is. I mean, people and so there are all these statistics both ways, you know. Yeah, it just feels like people are getting really stuck on this MCG narrative. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. 1 win out of the last 15.
Not great.
Is not great. But every situation's different. They won the final in Melbourne last year against a good Demon side. You know, I think it's fair to say they probably should have won against the Demons at the MCG earlier this year. They gave that one up. Yeah. But, you know, I'm more focused on how these teams match up. You know, how do these teams match up? And, you know, like you said, Brisbane have a great record against this Pies team.
That's right.
You know, they scored 116 and 124 points in the 2 games they played in this year. This is the big one. I mean, how are Collingwood going to keep Brisbane to a score that they can reach, you know, at the end of the day? So, you know, is it a factor, the MCG factor? Yes. You know, it has to be taken into account, but it's part of a whole picture and it's not as large a part as most people are putting it down to.
And therein lies the opportunity in your mind. That's why we're probably getting a price.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Want to thank the community for sending in a few questions, so I'll get Joel to answer these, and this is a good one first up. So how big is the effect of the Collingwood crowd? You know, how many goals is it worth?
Yeah, it's so much bigger in preliminary final weekend. You know, where 95% of the people there are supporters. You know, grand final is a big corporate event. You know, I think each team get allocated 15 or 20% of the crowd.
Yep.
Then, you know, Collingwood supporters would have scalped a hell of a lot of tickets, but there's a lot of corporates that'll be on Brisbane's side. So I don't think it's massive. You know, might be a goal. You know, might be a goal. But you know, this isn't like preliminary final weekend, so I expect, you know, lots of people who aren't going for Collingwood will be going for Brisbane.
Yep.
Or not Collingwood supporters, rather.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of Collingwood versus the rest of Australia narrative going around.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, next question. Who is the player that may surprise everybody and have a huge game?
Yeah, it's a good question. Surprise? How surprised? Look, somebody that I think can pop up here is Jamie Elliott. You know, I feel like he is somebody that's had a couple of quiet finals. He's a big game player.
Yep.
He's somebody that can turn the game and potentially win the grand final off his own boot, because he needs to provide something that Collingwood so desperately need in this final, and that's scoring in a forward line that's a little bit on demand.
Okay, cool. Now we've had a few people ask as well for your best tips, so we'll wrap up here by you can give your winner, who I think we know who the winner is, but maybe a margin, maybe a Norm Smith pick, and then a best bet.
Yep.
Which I think we already know what that's going to be too.
So we're obviously on the lines here. It's important to mention this game is close to a coin flip. I have Brisbane slight favourites. So by all
value on the
means,
line potentially.
Well, by all means, Collingwood can win this game. So I want to be clear about that. Even though we're big on Brisbane, and we have been, it's because of the price we've been getting. But my best bet is Brisbane still to win at $2.20. I think you're getting on Betfair. I think they'll, you know, if I had to pick a margin, Brisbane by 7 points, and Norm Smith, Josh Dunkley does a great job on DeGoey and has a good game himself. I think the voters will look kindly on that. So I'll go with Josh Dunkley for the Norm.
Josh Dunkley sitting at $15.50 the fare for Normie.
Yep, that's a good price.
There's a price. All right. Oh, I've just checked the weather too. 28 degrees for the big one on Saturday.
Yep.
That is going to feel hot to Victorians. Very, very hot. And I know that generally weather's pretty decent across this time of year in Queensland.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
I think it doesn't hurt the line by no means. So yeah. Doesn't it?
Nice, and it's going to be good weather in Adelaide too, which is great. So it's all just lining up nicely for us, isn't it? Now, mate, have to touch on your results so far this final series. Nothing short of outstanding. Sitting at 21, nearly 22 units at nearly 30% profit on turnover, which is insane. 23 out of 35 winning picks and profitable in 5 out of the 8 finals. That's performing on the big stage, isn't it?
I appreciate that. I appreciate the rap, mate. We're thrilled to be able to deliver such a great final series off the back of a great season all round. So thrilled for our subscribers, thrilled for our members, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it this year as well. So it's been one of the best AFL seasons I can recall, just from an enjoyment perspective, and I think myself and the team's been super engaged, and that's really came out in our results.
Nice. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on, I just wanted to know if you could give me your favourite grand final of the last 20 years. I know you normally go to most of them, so you've probably got a different perspective to most. What was your favourite?
My least favourite was the Richmond Adelaide.
That made my top 3 actually. I enjoyed that thoroughly.
So that was my least favourite. Look, I'll probably go back to. I loved the West Coast Sydney Grand Final, 506.
They were great.
They're incredible.
For the 2 teams to go back. And both games to be decided by less than a goal. Just insane.
It is. And so that was probably the one for me. One of those 2. Perhaps the West Coast one.
Yep. I would have to go with my Doggies in 2016. Just like, it was obviously a great game, but I look at, Carlton and GWS were arguably, they were the form sides of the comp going into these finals. They were the 2 sides that were going to cause some havoc. They were playing better footy than Collingwood, arguably playing better footy than Brisbane. And, they ultimately fell short. It's just so hard to win from outside the top 4.
It is.
So you just look at that Dogs side winning from 7th. It might never happen again.
Incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
I just think just the circumstances and the way that was won.
And they beat us, They beat a strong side, Sydney, that year. I was at that game and it was incredible, the atmosphere. I think the whole world wanted the Dogs to win because it'd been quite a drought. It was such a great grand final. And it's a good pick from you there, mate.
Yep, no bias at all. And we just wanted to wrap up quickly by touching on the Brownlow. It was a pretty incredible count if you look at it holistically. We were saying sort of during the day how boring it's been, and I was on the edge of my seat towards the end. But it's been well documented, some of the bizarre votes being given. Neil had a 3-vote game with a 20 possession game. Well, one of his teammates kicked 7 goals and his opponents had 41 and 38 touches.
Yep.
And then there was, I thought it was hilarious when Joel Amadi polled 3 early in the year after being subbed out tactically, like not injured, like he was chosen to be subbed out, and polled 3. But he kicked 4 goals, but he played half the game.
Yep.
So that was, all the Sydney players were giggling when they saw that. And then, another one, Taylor Adams polled a 3 with a 20-touch game. That again that shocked a few.
Yeah.
Do you think the system needs to change? Is that just footy? Is that just the medal? What's your opinion on that?
Without going too deep into the individual questionable games that the umpires voted for, because there were many, I thought it was really highlighted this year. I thought it was more surprising than any of the last 5 years. But I've heard a couple of people raise the viewpoint of this is what makes it special. It is an umpire's award. It's not the declared, there's the coach's award, there's the Brownlow medal. It adds to it, doesn't it? Because it's easy for us to analyse a game perfectly and look at the statistics after the game and all that. We can have another award for that if you like.
Yeah.
But what makes this award special is that uniqueness about it. And I think a lot of people get fed up because people outlay a lot of money on this and things don't go to plan. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it, and it's just part of the beauty of that particular medal.
Yeah. There were 17 players who polled 3 votes who didn't get coaches' votes in that game. Wow. And there were 20, on the flip side, there were 20 players who polled 10 coaches' votes that didn't poll any Brownlow votes.
Wow.
Which is, I think it just proves that everyone looks at the game differently. I've heard, the big one is let the umpires look at the stats after the game before they do their votes. And it's kind of like, before probably the last 2 years, everyone was saying it's just a stat medal. If you do that, then you guarantee it to be.
Look, like if we're trying to make this the perfect medal, maybe have a weighting, umpires, coaches, media, and then that gets weighted up for a 3-2-1. But
don't mind that at all.
It's just, I'm okay with how it sits now.
Yep. All right, mate. Thanks for stopping by and joining me to talk about the game. yeah, we're counting down. It's days away now. It's getting really excited. I think everyone knows what side we're sitting on.
Yeah.
So go the Lions.
Go the Lions. Enjoy the game with Waddy, and thanks for a great season.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.